Vilisink back again, Raid Shadow Legends, and we are continuing on with Shadowkin. So, in the last video, we looked at the legendaries of that faction, and we kind of deciphered, apart from Nobel, who in certain situations maybe can be quite good faction wars ways if he's paired with Kimmy, but he has a kit that kind of depends on him being set up. So, apart from that, everybody else is fantastic. With the new faction coming out, any one of those legendaries will help you. We're going to look through some of the epics now. So Taragi the Frog is a fantastic champion. I've seen him in arena. I've seen him being used in dungeons. People have done videos. Rightfully so. Pretty cool champion. Decrease attack on the A1. 40% chance. Still pretty good. Decrease attack. Helps you stay alive. Whether it's against a boss. Somebody in a wave. Doesn't matter. Decrease attack is awesome. Potent Stench. His A2 is an attack all enemies. 50% chance. We'll go to a 3-turn cooldown. It's a chance to provoke for 1 turn. So if you can go after certain people, pardon me, if you can put up decreased defense and weaken, decrease speed, all this type of things, that increases his chance to provoke by 5% for his debuff. So that 50% can climb really high. Provoke is a very strong debuff, one of the best CCing debuffs in the game. If Taragi is built right. Bog Blessing places a shield buff. Oh, it just fell off. Places a shield buff equal to 15% of Taragi's HP, and a 50% ally protection buff, meaning he will take 50% of all of the damage allies take. Obviously, he won't put ally protection on himself, but on all allies that goes on for 2 turns. So he's going to stick out a shield and ally protection. He will also heal himself by 25% of their max HP and places a 30% reflect damage buff on them for 3 turns. And the heal is increased by any poison debuff on an enemy. So a lot going on here with the shield, with the ally protection, the reflect damage, the heals. It's a lot in writing and it's a lot in action. If you use them, you then know how this works. You then know just how good it is. Reflect damage alone can save your guys and can kill the enemy. The ally protection, the shields, just timelessly good for any content. If you include that with the provoke and the decrease attack, he's basically just a tanking defender who could be quite interesting to play with. And there is news at the end of the video, so we'll stay tuned for it. But so far, so good. He's got a lot of buffs, a lot of debuffs, and they're all very positive. When attacked, 50% chance of placing a poison debuff on the attacker, which helps with this. So whenever he's attacked and he lands a poison debuff, he will then increase the size of the heals. Just overall, Taragi the Frog is just a top tier champion. He also increases ally resistance all battles by 40. With Tatsu, who apparently can hit quite well, I have him. I've debated building him. Let's take a little look what he says. Leech on the A1 for 2 turns. So if we're looking at faction wars, when it gets to the boss, it could help you stay alive by giving you healing. Dungeons, same. It could potentially help in Doom Tower as well. He does have an AoE on his A2, decrease attack. So quite nice. A2, A1 and A2 so far is okay. Increased defense buff on all allies for 2 turns. And a continuous heal buff on all allies for 1 turn. I mean, it's pretty cool. You use a random debuff from this champion at the start of each turn. Okay, so it's kind of like it's like a Doom Priest but to himself. So he removes debuffs so he cannot be CC'd. He then buffs up and protects the team. Decrease attack and a leech so he can stay alive longer, and also your teammates. Increases allied defense in all battles with 25%. The Tassel looks alright. Looks like a pretty solid champion for good buffs. AoE decrease attack is always quite helpful. The leech is always going to be helpful. The fact that he constantly will be removing any debuffs off of himself. Well, from this list obviously, at the start of every turn, that just makes him even better, which means you ain't going to CC him at all, which I quite like. So I have had interest to build that champion in the past. So Hitatsu for most content could be a lot of fun also. I think even a lot of these epics at 50 would be a very, very safe bet. Very safe. So A1, 40% chance goes to 60% chance, 25% poison sensitivity, debuff for 2 turns. As you know, Frozen Banshee at one point in time was the only poison sensitivity champion. She now isn't. There's multiple other champions that have it. It's great for clan bosses, just great for any content you're doing if you're using poison, to be fair. It gives you a massive increase in your damage output. A2 Soul Fire places an increased accuracy buff and an increased attack buff on herself for 2 turns. Cool. And attacks one enemy, places a HP burn debuff for 2 turns if it's a crit. So if you give her 100% crit rate, not only is she buffing herself up, but she's landing a HP burn debuff for 2 turns. Okay. AoE, chance of increasing the duration of all debuffs by 1 turn. I mean, you could open with the A2, go to the A3 after that and extend that HP burn. That could be extremely interesting. She is immune to decreased accuracy debuffs. Increases this champion's crit rate by 0.05% for every point of accuracy they have. Again, interesting. I mean, to do the maths, increasing the crit rate by 0.05%, how much would it really, really go up? The best part of that is she's immune to decreased accuracy debuffs. Give her some good accuracy. I suppose land that poison sensitivity. It will help you out tremendously. She will buff herself up. She will also need, it does say place, but she will need accuracy for the hit. Well, if it's a crit hit, she actually doesn't need accuracy, if it's based on whether it's a critical hit or not. But she will need accuracy, I would assume, for the increasing duration of all debuffs by a turn. Pretty cool looking kit. She looks like she's got some utility. Also increases accuracy in all battles by 40%. I mean, she could have certain uses with her poison. She buffs her accuracy, she buffs her attack. Attack's 1432. Attack maybe could be okay. Or you could build her with high HP and just kind of make sure you're giving her a crit rate for the HP burn. You're then going to extend it and bring in a poisoner, use poison sensitivity. Chani also looks alright. 3 out of 3 epics so far are pretty good. On with Toggy, I was thinking of fusing one of these epics. I'm not going for the Lego. I did debate, will I just throw Bruise into a rare and make one? Not sure which one we're going to go for though. Visionary does look okay. But on with Toggy, attacks one enemy twice, has an additional 20% chance of inflicting a crit hit if this champion is under Veil or Perfect Veil buffs. I quite like the Veil Perfect Veil thing, especially for Hydra. Hydra in general content, Doom Tower Dungeons, is just going to reduce your damage you take tremendously. A2, attacks one enemy twice, okay, each hit will ignore 20% of the target's defense. Nice, okay. 1564 attack, so it's based off of attack, so that could be interesting as well. Has an additional 20% chance of inflicting a crit hit if she's under a Veil or Perfect Veil, and she obviously places Veil or Perfect Veil buff on herself. Sorry, Perfect Veil, and an increased speed. Increased speed is cool, and it gives herself a turn meter boost. So you come in, you veil up, you increase your speed, you increase your turn meter. You're then going to ignore defense while inflicting a crit hit, because you're going to be under a perfect veil. And when it comes to the A1, again, it's going to be a crit hit because you're going to be under a perfect veil. So I think she could be a very fun champion. I think, again, Toggy looks perfectly fine. Faction Wars, Dungeons, Doom Tower, general progression if you wanted a veiled champion, just for fun. Whenever this champion is attacked, completely blocks one hit, decreasing the incoming damage to 0, and counter attacks with the default skill, which is interesting. And the damage goes to 50% when it's a boss and a 2-turn cooldown. So, increases ally crit rate in all battles by 15%. The aura's not fantastic, it will help. I think she could also have some use with the veils and the perfect veils, enabling you to ignore defense. And it's only based on giving her 100% crit rate, which means she could potentially hit quite well. 1564 attack is no joke. The increased speed, the turn meter buff. I think we've looked through 1, 2, 3, 4 epics so far, and all of them look pretty cool. So Sachi attacks all enemies, 40% chance of placing a 50% decreased accuracy debuff for 2 turns. Again, progression, dungeons, faction wars, Doom Tower, decreased accuracy. Hydra or the just in clan bosses, even would you need to worry about decreased accuracy? Because we kind of have block buff now, which is a bit of a shame, but hell, arena as well, it's got potential. You can book it 100%, and it's a single enemy, which is decreased crit rate, and a leech. Leech helps you stay longer. If you're decreasing someone's crit rate, you're not going to be crit on. Because if they were crit capped, they are no longer going to be crit capped, so that's pretty cool. Decreased crit rate, leech, decreased accuracy, which is a debuffer, buffs an attack and all allies for 2 turns, and attacks with enemy, fills the turn meters of all allies with 20%. So give her, again, build her with crit rate. She has okay, she has okay attack, defense is quite nice, pretty good speed, 102. So if you're using Sachi, the increased attack buff is pretty cool, the turn meter boost is pretty cool, the fact that you're going to be decreasing the enemy's crit rate and putting on a leech is pretty cool, the AoE decreased accuracy is pretty cool. So AoE attacks one enemy, she's not, revives a random ally with 30% HP. Whenever this champion kills someone, 50% chance of placing a fear debuff on all enemies for 1 turn. Whenever an ally is revived. So revive an ally, chance of feeding the enemy. She revives a random ally though. There is a revive if she kills someone. So if you think of Alton, like he can do one of his attacks and it will revive someone or put up a shield. If she can revive someone, the revivers for faction wars first and foremost, decent, will be needed. She will increase attack, so will give turn meter boosts, decreases crit rate, puts up leech and decreased accuracy. I think Dungeons and Doom Tower and Faction Wars, again, Sachi could be pretty cool. Looking at the kit, we are not using the champions because I don't have them all, but based on the kits and how they look, they all appear to be pretty cool. The Shadowkin faction so far are pretty decent. Banshee, I remember getting this guy, what a pain in the arse for the Burungiri fusion. He was at such a ridiculous amount of points. Attacks an enemy 3 times. Each hit, 30% chance placing a decreased speed. It's single enemy, 3 hits, cool. Even for Fire Knight in dungeons, that could be pretty cool. Attacks one enemy 3 times. Each hit does a chance to decrease turn meter, so Fire Knight is potentially where Banshee should go. Attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit places a poison. Will ignore 10% of the defense for each poison debuff on the. So, yeah, it could be pretty cool for Fire Knight just because he's got so many multi-hits. Dungeons, Doom Tower, Faction Wars, just because he ignores defense for all the poisons, you can be putting him in with anybody that does poisons. There's turn meter manipulation, and there's also decreased speed. Decreased speed can be clutch. It's a very, very good debuff. And this is pretty cool. So it's 50, the 50% chance goes to 75% chance, the 2-turn cooldown, decreasing turn meter by 15%. I mean, he's not the best one so far, but he's. I mean, I think the turn meter's okay because even like a eagle, like the mastery to decrease turn meter on his A1, that could be kind of handy. So decrease. So I think Fire Knight mainly for him. Would you use him in Faction Wars? Would you use him in Faction Wars? I mean, you probably could early stages. Not sure about late on, but he would have some use in dungeons for sure. Burungiri, the solo god. Not sure if it's quite the same now, but I've heard he's still badass. So it's just a provoke one enemy for 1 turn. I mean, that's kind of boring, let's be honest. Nobody uses him for his provoke. AoE, 60% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn. Stun, very strong. Doesn't matter where it is, any content in the game. You get him to land this stun on an AoE. You're golden. He puts up a strengthening buff on all allies for 2 turns. Strengthening is a newer buff. It's a very, very, very strong buff. To take so much less damage through strengthening, like, will keep you alive in any content way longer. I don't think people truly realise just how strong it is. Also places a shield buff on for 2 turns on all allies with less than 50% HP. The shield is equal to 50% of their HP, so that's pretty decent. The strengthening part of it is really, really nice. Heals his champion by 50% of their max HP. Yeah, so it'll probably so good in Bomber, because when the bombs explode he gets a heal. Increases resist by 40. I mean, it's decent. He's mainly decent just for Bommel. You could use him in other places. He does have an okay kit. His A1 is nothing fantastic though. So Chinoroo, we have attacks an enemy, 5% chance, goes to 50, placing block buffs. Single target, nothing fantastic. Attacks 3 times at random, I don't like that. Each hit can be 100% chance placing a weaken. Removes all increased defense buffs from all. So if you know you're fighting people that will be putting up increased defense, that's fine. If nobody puts up increased defense, this is kind of pointless. The attacks at random I don't like. The single enemy attack block buffs. I mean, I don't know. I don't see a lot of. For me personally, I just don't see a lot happening there. Gory, we have attacks an enemy twice, places an extra hit if the target is under freeze. Heals his champion by 10% of the damage inflicted. So I'm assuming Gory puts up a freeze, and because of that he can get a heal. Attacks it at random. Yeah, I don't like that at all. Why Frosted Jutsu? Why not just do Jitsu? Be much better. So you can book it to 100% chance that you're guaranteed to land a freeze on someone, but it's AoE, it's just kind of silly. That's one enemy. Will ignore increased defense and shield. Will also ignore 50% of the target's defense. If under a freeze, places a counter attack buff and an increased attack buff on him, Gory for 2 turns. If he kills someone, so he can buff up, he can buff his attack, give himself counter attack. You can ignore increased defense, shield buffs, and ignore half of your defense. So you'd have to come in with the A2 first and foremost, before you did the A3 or the A1. I mean, he lands freeze, but attacks 3 times at random. People may have Gory counter attacks with the Cold Comfort skill whenever an enemy has to place stun, sleep, freeze. So basically, if anybody tries to CC an ally, you counter attacks with Cold Comfort, which is if somebody's under a freeze, they get an extra hit. I mean, I don't like the at random part. I don't like the fact that, again, say nobody's putting up increased defense or shields, then it makes it kind of pointless. Yes, he's got a freeze, but again, Gory, I'm not looking too happily at you. Georgian, the man that ate all the pies, attacks one enemy 60% chance of placing decrease attack for 2 turns. It's a single enemy, but it's a pretty good debuff. Places a shield buff on him for 2 turns, equal to a quarter of his HP. Then he'll attack someone, placing a provoked debuff for a turn. If the target's max HP is equal to or lower than this champion's, so you build him with low HP or lower HP, slightly lower than normal, and he will be able to land a provoke, so it will not be able to be resisted. That's quite interesting. Attacks an enemy will ignore 25% of their defense, will also ignore unkillable and block damage. I mean, for a H, will receive 25% less damage from enemy attacks when his champion's HP. So when he gets low, increases. Okay, so he's a HP based champion that increases ally HP in all battles. He takes less damage when his HP goes below 50%. He'll ignore unkillable, block damage, and 25% of the target's defense, which is ignores unkillable. So if you can hit quite hard, his base HP is pretty decent, almost 21,000. For all your unkillables and all that type of block damage, that could be fun. He puts up a shield for 2 turns, equal to a quarter of his HP, then he'll attack. I mean, he's a HP based champion, you would want to build him with good HP, so that's where his damage is coming from. So, if the target's max HP is equal to or lower, yeah, I mean, Fated Jewel, I'm kind of on the fence at that one. But the decreased attack is pretty cool on enemies. So when they're attacking you or your team, they will do less damage. But as a HP based champion, I mean, Georgian, he's got things that can be okay, but he's got things that kinda are not too great. What the hell? So nobody cares that you've got a 30% chance to steal a buff. That's crap. And too much fucking books. 75% chance of placing a decreased attack. Increased defense in all allies, also fills the turn meters. Yeah, I'm just going to say straight away, I'm disappointed. Masamoto, that's just disappointing. Loboro, I have her, and I'm so thinking of building her. So attacks one enemy, 40% chance goes to 50, or placing decreased defense, the big version for 2 turns. Will attack all enemies instead if the target is under 4 or more debuffs. Again, decreased defense, weaken, decreased speed, all this type of debuffs could come into effect and help. So, but decreased defense on the A1, solid. Attacks an enemy twice. The second hit has a 100% chance when you pick it of transferring all debuffs from her to the target. Nice. The first hit has a 75% up to 100 chance of stealing all buffs from the target when attacking under veil. That's pretty cool. So she puts on, increases her crit rate and her crit damage, and then she'll put on a perfect veil if that attack is critical. So we'll build it with crit rate, or 70% crit rate, just to make sure we get it to 100. After she's under a perfect veil, she'll steal enemy buffs, and she will transfer all debuffs to the enemy, decrease defense. This is a revive on death buff on herself for 3 turns. Whenever they receive a veil or perfect veil, so she's going to be hard to kill. Faction Wars, Dungeons, Doom Tower, written all over her. Easy. Fantastic aura for Dungeons as well. Just beautiful. Loboro, fantastic. Gambo, we don't need to really stay on Gambo's page long enough. He steals any increased attack buffs. Each hit also has a 30% chance, you can book it higher, of stealing a buff. The increased attack buff steal cannot be resisted. AoE, 100% chance decreasing the duration of all buffs by a turn. You cannot resist it, but what he's known for is, if you see Gambo in arena mainly, he comes in, he buffs his crit rate, he buffs his crit damage, he gets an extra turn, he then does this, and he just nukes everybody's ass, and then you're dead. There's countless videos on Gambo. You know he's good, we don't need to discuss that he's good. You can't break his attack, and as long as he's under increased attack, he will ignore unkillable, which is good for skull crowns, good for any of that swift parry. A great speed aura for arena. We all know Gambo is just a nuking crazy machine. And Taya, which is interesting haircut. Single enemy, 60% chance placing decreased accuracy. Attacks one enemy 3 times, chance to apply poison. 100% chance of instantly activating any poison debuffs and takes reburn debuffs from the target. That makes her quite interesting. Also has a 100% chance of placing a hero reduction. I mean, the only thing that